This is Matt Brown, and you're listening to Just a Good Conversation. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde have nothing on Chad Cordero. Quiet and sweet with a soft spot for Twinkies, and then he walks onto the baseball field and all hell breaks loose. Chad Cordero is one of the greatest players to ever wear a Cal State Fullerton uniform. And after 7 years of playing Major League Baseball and becoming the second youngest player to reach 100 saves, it all came to a crashing halt in a blink of an eye. His life is full of, I didn't think that was going to happen.
And I remember Horton used to always compare me to Clark Kent and Superman all the time. And so, which was actually a really good comparison because, Clark Kent, very unassuming, couldn't tell him apart from anybody else. But once he puts on that costume, it's like a totally different person. And that's how kind of I was. The minute I put on my uniform and the minute I stepped on that mound, I felt different. I felt like I was somebody else, and I think that's what Serrano saw.
I'm Matt Brown, host of Just a Good Conversation. Take a listen to our archives. My guests have ranged from authors and screenwriters, Hall of Fame basketball players, and Texas State photographer Wyman Menzer.
I remember the first digital image. It was a scanned 35 millimeter slide. And I got a request from a magazine in France. And so I scanned this image and sent it to them, and they received it and paid me. And I'm going, wow, man, this is the dawning of a new day. I still have my image. I got paid, and my image is in good shape.
The rest of my conversation with Wyman can be found on our archives at justagoodconversation.com. Let's take a quick break for a sponsor before diving into my conversation with Chad Cordero. I get to sit and talk to a man who has just sprung some news on the world today. I'm on Facebook. I've been chasing you for a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden, you're going back to the islands with Suzuki. How in the hell are you, Chad?
You know what? I am doing very well.
Yeah. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm glad we were able to catch up. I haven't seen you in forever, and when I saw that on Facebook, I was like, "Damn, good for you, man! Going to Hawaii or in Hawaii."
Yep.
Jesus. Yep. So, I love the best part of my podcast, and I say this is my research, and I've known you for over 20 years. Can you believe that?
You know what? It doesn't even seem like it's been that long.
Okay, so this is where I felt old when I looked and I was like, "You're 40?"
Yeah.
Oh my God!
You know what? I was actually just thinking about that the other day. I'm like, gosh, it's been 21 years since I was a freshman at Fullerton. I was just thinking about that. I think it was like Monday or Tuesday. It's crazy to me.
Does it seem like it went fast? Or was there such a roller coaster in between those 20 years? Mm-hmm. Now you look at it.
It seems like it's gone by way too quick. I know everybody says that, life goes by quick, don't miss anything. But I didn't really think about it like that too much until it actually happened. Like I said, 21 years later, and I'm 41 years old or 40 years old now. So it has gone by quick. There were times, obviously, that did seem like it was going a lot slower. But I mean, 21 years since my freshman year and playing Stanford and going to Miami when I was at Fullerton, it's crazy.
So you posted something the other day, and I'm like, we've got to talk about this. So you're born and raised in California, correct?
Yep.
You posted, or somebody posted, the photo of you in your Chino Hills baseball uniform. That's like that orange, and your pants are up to your knees, and your mullet's in full effect. Like, were you always a baseball guy? Was baseball in your household?
Yes, it was. Baseball was nonstop. I mean, baseball and actually softball. I grew up around slow pitch softball. Both my parents played it. My grandpa on my mom's side played it until he was about 75 years old. So
really?
Oh yeah, he was playing in the senior leagues, going to Vegas all the time playing.
Damn, he's got good knees.
Yep. Until the doctors told him that he wasn't able to do it anymore. He was out there playing. and I think there were guys on his team that were a lot older than him playing on it too. So, but yeah, so baseball has been part of my life since the get go. I remember my first organized league that I played in was a league called Ice Cream Baseball out here in Chino, and that was ran by the Chino Recreation. And my Aunt Bonnie and my Aunt Nancy were two of the leaders that ran it for the city, and I think I enjoyed playing over there so much because we played baseball, and then right afterwards we got an ice cream and those old those mini baseball helmets. So I think that's what kept me going.
Was there ever a dabble in like soccer or basketball, football, anything for you?
Oh yeah, growing up, I never played baseball year round until I was in high school. My parents didn't really believe in that, in which I am so happy that I never did. So basically, what my year consisted of was fall time it was soccer. Once soccer was done, went straight into basketball, and basketball went into baseball, and then I had the entire summer off to be a kid. And I enjoyed that. I think it helped me out. I think it helped me be a better, more rounded athlete, and it also allowed me to enjoy the game a lot more than if I was playing year round. I think if I was playing year round, I probably would have got burnt out.
Right.
And plus, being able to still go out and go on camping trips with my family during the summers, going to Giants games every year in San Francisco was a blast.
I mean, that's the sad thing now is you have kids locked up in travel ball, and like 11 months out of the year, they're all over the country playing baseball.
Yep. Exactly.
And they never know how to swing a tennis racket or dive into a pool or play rec league basketball. Like they're just wearing stirrups all year long.
Yeah, or just be a kid, and know what it's like to go ride your bikes for like 2 hours around the city that you live in.
Yeah.
You don't see kids doing that anymore. You don't see kids playing different sports. It's from the time they're like 10 years old, they're locked in on one sport. It's kind of sad.
Did you find pitching, or was it by accident? Where like
I think I had always enjoyed pitching. I had pitched from the time I was able to when I was 9, I think 8 or 9 years old. But I didn't pitch a whole lot. I also played first base, and then all throughout high school I played outfield, first base as well. So there were other positions that I played, but pitching was just always my best one. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being in control. Which is weird because that's not my personality, like at all. But I liked being the center of attention when I was out there on the mound. It made me feel good, and it made me feel like I was on top of everything.
When did you start getting good at pitching?
I was pretty much good from the get go. I mean, I had always thrown harder than all the kids growing up. Which is weird because in the big leagues I maybe threw 88 miles an hour, which wasn't very hard at all. But growing up, I was one of the harder throwers, and so I was always one of the best pitchers in whatever league I was in. Growing up, what I played Little League, and then I went into Pony Ball when I was 13. So both leagues that I played in, I was one of the better pitchers, if not the best pitcher, in both those leagues. So I was always good, but I didn't realize just how good I was until I got to college.
I mean, did you go varsity as a freshman?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I was going up and down. I made the varsity team as a freshman. The varsity team wasn't that great that year, and so the coach didn't want me to really be around that atmosphere. So he had me kind of go up and down. I played mostly with the freshman team that year, my freshman year, and then my sophomore year is when I was on varsity permanently.
What do you think Dave saw, in you in high school?
You know what? I'm still trying to figure that out.
All right, I'll take note to self. Ask Dave, what the hell did he see in Mr. Cordero?
No, I think he saw my mentality. Because if you know me off the field, I'm very quiet. I'm very reserved. I'm not very. I don't stand out very much. But when I'm on the mound, I'm like a different person. And I remember Horton used to always compare me to Clark Kent and Superman all the time. And so which was actually a really good comparison because, Clark Kent, very unassuming, couldn't tell him apart from anybody else. But once he puts on that costume, it's like a totally different person. And that's how kind of I was. The minute I put on my uniform and the minute I stepped on that mound, I felt different. I felt like I was somebody else. And I think that's what Serrano saw.
Where do you think you got that?
To be honest, I really have no idea.
Was Dad like that or Mom like that?
Not really. They're both very, very laid back people. I think it was just because I grew up watching sports. I mean, I was always watching This Week in Baseball every Saturday morning, and watching all the Fox broadcasts every weekend in baseball. And I think I just got it from watching those games and seeing the mentality that all the pitchers had growing up.
Who did you watch and admire when you were watching those games?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I learned my slider from watching. Who was it? It was Mike Hampton,
okay.
Which was kind of random since he's a lefty and I'm a righty. But I remember watching him, and I think he was playing. Who was he playing for? The Mets, I think it was at the time. And I can't remember or was it the Braves? It might have been the Braves. I can't remember. But I remember he was pitching. It was the Braves, and they were pitching at the. They're playing against the Mets. And so I remember watching him, and he was talking. They had a little thing before the game talking about his slider, and that's really where I learned how to throw my slider. Was watching that. So I enjoyed watching him, but I did always love watching Trevor Hoffman. I loved the way he went after hitters and just went about his business. And I think that's kind of where I kind of got how I was as a pitcher from.
Yeah, because I mean, I said this before when I've had other guests on who are played. I would always ask like Dave or George, and like, oh, who's coming? Who's next year? Who are you looking at? And I remember Dave just saying, he's like, I think we got a shot. Some kid, local kid. He can make a difference. He can make a difference. And sure enough, this loud, boisterous kid shows up in August of 2001. No, it would have been 2000.
2000, yeah.
Yeah, for headshot day. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is the guy, huh? What do you remember what that body looked like as a freshman?
Oh, what did it look like? It was very soft. I'll put it that way. I'll be nice to myself and just say I was very soft.
Did you? I mean, obviously CrossFit wasn't even a thought, but like,
oh yeah,
you obviously didn't spend hours in the weight room like Lorenzen. What was your preparation going into college? Thinking like, I'm going to Cal State Fullerton. They're a perennial national champion. Mm-hmm. Should I maybe mix in a sit-up once in a while or something? Or
well, what did I do? I remember. Oh, you know what I did? Because I remember hearing, and to me, it was they sounded like horror stories. I remember hearing about or what they called Camp Hookie.
Oh yes,
yeah. So I was like, I got to do something. So I remember leading up to it, like right after my American Legion season ended, I did start running. I didn't really lift a whole lot. But I did start running, which was very, very hard for me. But I would jump the fence at the high school where I went to, and I would just run around the field for like an hour, and then that was my conditioning, and that's how I try to get ready for the season. Did it prepare me for what was in store with Camp Hookie? Heck no. But if I didn't do anything at all, I think it would have been a lot worse.
If you'd have spent 4 weeks with the Marines, it might have been a taste, but that's only,
I don't even know if that would have helped.
Well, he has language that some of the Marines haven't heard of yet, so.
Which is kind of surprising.
What was your expectations going in that freshman year, right? Like that team's, they're loaded. They got a bunch of guys coming back. I mean, were you thinking, I'm looking at the closing position? Were you thinking maybe I'm a starter, a midweek guy? Like, what was your hope?
Honestly, for me, I was just hoping for maybe like 5 innings tops. I didn't have too high of expectations because for me, the way I saw it is I wasn't like a top recruit. That year they had what they called the Temecula Five, and they had Derek Merrill and Kyle Boyer and a bunch of other guys. And we also had Wes Littleton coming in, and plus the guys that we had returning. We had Sarlos, we had John Smitty, and then even Nunez too. So
yeah,
so I wasn't expecting a whole lot of innings on the mound. I was just hoping for maybe to crack an inning here or there. Was not expecting at all to be the closer from pretty much that Stanford series on.
Yeah, it was a pretty. I mean, was that the year Sarlos threw the no-hitter against Pacific?
When we beat them 27-0?
Yeah.
Yep, that was that same year.
See, okay, tell me what you're thinking from a pitcher's point of view. I remember I covered the game, but I'm not asking you at that point. Like today, you look at it now, what are you thinking? Like, what does that look like for you as a freshman?
Oh, that was nuts. And I remember what was even crazier was the fact that he was our Sunday starter.
Yeah.
And not our Friday night guy, which goes to show you just how good we were on the mound that year. But to come in and see a guy like Sarlos throw a no-hitter and then we're winning 27-0, that was nuts. But I enjoyed it. I mean, I had a lot of really good resources to talk to. I wasn't a cocky kid, so the upperclassmen they really took to me and they helped me out a lot. And if it wasn't for Sarlos or Smitty, I don't know if I would have had the career that I had.
Really, they really took you that well.
Yeah, they were great. They helped me out. Smitty was the one who gave me the Chief nickname that stuck, and that I still go by to this day. But they were super nice and they were super welcoming, and I didn't really, that's the only place that had really felt that, because I remember when I got called up to the big leagues, nobody talked to me for the first 2 weeks, like not even a hi, not how are you, not good job, nothing. And so I'd always it made me realize just how lucky I was and how good I had it my freshman year at Fullerton. I
mean, okay, so I don't think I'll ever, and I don't think you'll ever see it, but like to throw a no-hitter winning 27-0. And he did it on like less than 80 pitches.
Yep.
I mean, that at some point you're like, oh, it's 11-0. If I give up just a dinker, George isn't coming out.
Right.
Like, oh, now it's 15. And then you're sitting in the dugout and you're like, guys, come on. I'm getting cold. Can you guys warm it up? Let's go. I mean, 24, 25, 26. Yep. I mean, you're just like, good Lord.
Yeah, it was nuts. And I remember we kind of all, like, when it was happening, we didn't realize what exactly was happening until about maybe the 6th inning.
Yeah, because everybody was scoring.
Yeah, and we didn't realize it because we didn't really check the scoreboard a whole lot. But if we did, we weren't looking at how many hits we had given up. We were looking at how many runs we had scored. So nobody had really noticed it. And then, like I said, until about the 6th inning, and then we almost about killed Karovsky because I remember he came in and made an error with 2 outs in the 9th inning. And I think, where they had him, he was at second base, and a ground ball, easy ground ball, and he just flat out missed it. And we thought, okay, well, that's it. It's not going to happen anymore. And luckily, Sarlos was able to get one more out and stuff. But I remember the dugout was about to kill Karovsky that night.
I just thought it was weird that football felt like it was back. You're looking up at the scoreboard going, who missed the extra point? Like it was. So I always wanted to ask someone later who was in that dugout what it was like. Because for me, it was very bizarre because I was aware of the no-hitter, but there were so many runs being scored. I'm like, and I'm shooting film at this point. I'm like, I'm going to run out of film. Ryan Ermeling doesn't need this many photos of us beating the crap out of Pacific.
Right. I know. It was, it was crazy. I remember, I think today, to this day, that's still the only no-hitter that I've ever been a part of. So I've never been a part of a no-hitter where we won like 2 or 3-0. That was the only one I've ever been a part of. So to have that happen when you're winning 27-0, it's like surreal.
Yeah.
You don't even believe that could even happen.
Well, I mean, okay. Outside of that game, what other game have you been in where a team scored 20 runs?
Oh, gosh, I don't even know if I've ever been a part of that. I think the closest we've been was when in 2003 when we beat Texas 14-4.
Okay.
I think that was the closest one, and even that, I think we went down 4-0 after the top of the first, and we came back. I think we scored 10 runs in the bottom of the first inning, and which was nuts because I mean that game was crazy because that was the first time that Garrido had come back. We were both ranked, I think, in the top 10. I think Texas might have been a little bit ahead of us.
Yeah.
I remember thinking after they scored those 4 runs, okay, well, we're in, it's going to be a long night for us possibly. because they were over there. They were feeling good. They were running their mouth a little bit. Their fans were running their mouths. And then we came back and scored 10 runs off their Friday night starter in the first inning and knocked them out. I was like, okay, well, this team is pretty good then.
Yeah, that's so bizarre. So bizarre. It was so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start to feel, extremely comfortable at the D1 level?
Oh, that's a good question. It's probably after the Miami series.
Okay.
I remember because we went in there. I think we were ranked number 13, I think at the time, and they were ranked number 1. And going in there, beating them the way we did, and then me pitching the way I did, I was like, I belong. Because Miami, I grew up watching the College World Series, knowing how good Miami was.
Yeah.
They went on to win the World Series that same year. But I remember after that series, I was like, you know what, I belong here now. So I remember there was a point in I think it was game 2. I think we were up by like 5 or 6 runs, I think it was. And I remember I proceeded to load the bases with nobody out. And then I remember Serrano came out to talk to me, and then I struck out the next 3 hitters on 9 straight pitches.
Is that all?
Yep, that was all. So I think I was like, okay, well, I you know what, I am good. I can do this. I don't have to be so nervous, and I don't have to load the bases and make Hookie become even redder than he already is.
I mean, the team offensively, Shane's hitting 380, Mike Strauss hits 377, Stringfellow hits 345. Guys, Bacani's hitting 330, Cropsy's 330. I saw Brett K the other day, he's at 320. There was guys crushing it on that team.
Yep.
Crushing.
Yeah, it was nuts. And I remember, I remember the Super Regional when we played Mississippi State, and we had two straight games of a guy hitting 3 home runs in one game. It was, I can't remember who did it first. It was either Rifkin or Rouse, but one of them hit 3 home runs a Friday night game, and then either Rifkin or Rouse, whoever it was, came and did the same thing the next day. And I was like, this is nuts. I have never seen anything like that. There's a couple things that happened in that 2001 year that I had never seen before.
Yeah, it was pretty odd. So what was that? What was it like for you when we go to Omaha? As a freshman that year, that must have just been like, last year I was at prom and now I'm in Omaha.
It was crazy, but I enjoyed it, and I was so lucky, that. I think that entire team was lucky because we had a chance to play Nebraska in their first ever College World Series game.
Do you remember that stadium? Oh,
that was nuts. I mean, it felt like we were playing in a football game. That's how loud it was, and if they were that loud for a baseball game, I can't even imagine how loud they were at their football games when they were still really good.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. I remember we were driving down from the hotel down over to Rosenblatt, and we saw a big old painted N in the middle of the street on the way to the stadium and stuff. And this is crazy. And all we saw was a sea of red and our little speck of blue.
Oh yeah.
Once we got there, but you know what? The fans, I'll give them credit. The Nebraska fans, they were some of the nicest people that I had ever met. They were so welcoming to us, even after we beat them. I remember they thought Louis L'Amour was like a living legend because he was the one who kept beating all the security to the beach balls that were getting thrown on the field. So They loved him. They were like bowing to him in left field. So it was incredible.
And I think, wasn't he sporting a mustache?
Yes, he was.
Yes.
He had his. Did he have long hair at the time? I think he might have cut it. But yeah, he had his mustache and he had like a scruffy beard going on. Like he hadn't shaved in like 3 weeks. He was a character, but he was awesome.
Now, as great as you were on the mound that year, you're loaded with that team. I don't know if you know this, you led the team in hitting.
my one base hit against Miami.
But you're one at bat. One at bat, one hit. That's 1,000.
Yep, and what people don't realize is after I got that base hit, I nearly tripped coming out of the batter's box. I think I was so surprised that I made contact. I swung at the very first pitch that I saw, got a base hit to left field, and I think I forgot how to run because I literally almost fell. I think if the left fielder had really wanted to, he probably could have thrown me out.
He could have plucked you off.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last hit you had before that?
It was over summer because I had still hit. I mean, in college and for my American Legion team, I still hit a lot. I played DH and first base or right field, so I hit. But it had been probably 8 or 9 months since my last official at bat.
Okay. Well, forever that 2001 team, you're the leading batter. Yeah, I mean,
no one can ever take that away from me.
No, and when you get inducted into the Cal State Fullerton Hall of Fame as an individual, if it doesn't have anything about your batting average, I'm going to be furious. I don't care about your ERA and your Player of the Year awards, all that crap. 1,000%, baby.
Yep. And I even got a base hit against UCLA that year, but they called me out because they said I batted out of order. So, but I don't even think it went down as an official at bat.
No, right. If you're out of order, you were just screwing around. How did you get out of order?
I don't. You know what? I have no idea.
You were so excited.
I think Horton's the one who told me to go hit. So I don't know. I'm gonna blame it on him.
Oh, he looked down the bench and saw, that guy's hitting 1,000. Put him in.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. No way I'm putting in Richie Pedroza. No. Kyle Boyer's a mess. Oh, shit. So 02's a little goofy, or it's not as hot, and it's after September 11th. So we go up to Stanford and we played Fresno and Long Beach. It was the weirdest regionals because they started doing that very tight locational regional settings.
Yep.
But 03 that year, and it's locked and loaded with all that talent, and I still think that team is so much better than the 04 team that wins.
I still tell everybody that. You know what? They just got
right.
They got hot and we didn't.
That's right. That's all that matters. But if you look at that pitching staff that you rolled with in 03, my God, I'm shocked you even got any saves because, I mean, those guys were just dealing.
Yeah, and the weird part was like we had Ricky Romero, and he wasn't even one of our starters. I think he might have been like a midweek guy.
Yeah, he was that LMU Pepperdine Tuesday game.
Yep, and that's you have a pretty good staff when you have a future first rounder who's your Tuesday night guy. Yeah,
but when I had Ricky on, he even said he's like, I was terrified.
He was a completely different kid after his freshman year, but you can see how you can see all the potential and all the talent that he had.
Yeah, there was massive growth, and that's what happens. He's around you guys, and that's gonna happen. I mean, do you still close your eyes and get furious at Johnny Ash? I've never met the kid, but he's a grown man now. I might want to slap him upside the head.
What angered me the most was when he came out and said that on ESPN that he had a dream of hitting a home run off of me the night before.
Yeah, so I had that one too. Yeah, right. So walk me through that scenario. Right, we're playing Stanford. We're in the losers winner bracket, like we do or die. Whoever loses goes home.
I think it was because we were 2-0 that year, and so we were in the driver's seat, and then Stanford had to come up through the losers bracket, which they did. They had a really good team, and then they beat us the first game of our bracket championship. So that game that he hit it was a do or die, win or go home, and it was a really good game. It was. I can't remember what the exact score was, but I remember when I came in, we were up by 2, and I had been warming up, so I want to say since the 5th inning.
Now, are you surprised you're going in? Because my thing is, and I know you've heard this, Dave and George said they weren't going to change anything that they haven't done all year, and then they do.
Right. Yep.
Were you not looking over at Spider going, hey, why aren't you going in?
That was my initial thought because he had been warming up since I want to say the 3rd inning. So I thought that he was going to go in. He was our setup man. He had been doing it all year, and he was doing a very good job of it, like extremely good job of it. Like I think he's a guy that always always gets overlooked at just how good of a pitcher and setup man that he really was.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
So for him to not go in, and for him to, after warming up for so long, it was a bit of a surprise. And I hadn't gone, more than I think 2 innings since I was a starter in high school. So since 3 years before, since my senior year in 2000. So for me to go in, I think I threw 3 or 4 innings. I think it was. I don't remember exactly how much it was. It was tough, and Omaha's not an easy place to pitch. It's hot, it's humid, it's muggy. The environment and the weather is definitely not like it is back here in California.
No, it was probably 103 degrees and 97% humidity.
Yep. So I think that kind of wore on me a little bit, but either way, like I understood I had a job to do, and I left the pitch. I remember I was trying to go inside to him, and I just left the pitch too far over the middle of the plate, and he put a good swing on it. I don't think he hit it out by very much. I think Richie Burgos was maybe an inch or two away from catching it, I think. Yeah. So it's not like he hit the ball extremely hard. He just, he just got just enough to hit it out. So got to tip your cap.
Was it tough playing, like, I think it's by the regional or maybe by the super regional, because that format, to be drafted and now keep playing? How was that focus for you?
For me, I wasn't really worried about the draft. I wasn't even worried about the draft before it even happened. Because going into it, I had no idea I was going to be a first rounder. I thought I was going to be like maybe a 5th or a 6th rounder.
Did you really? I mean, you really didn't think you were going that high?
Oh no, not at all. I didn't. Even the morning of the draft, when the Expos scout wanted to meet with me at like 7:30 in the morning, I was not even thinking that was even a possibility. I was a 5'10.5" kid who threw 90 miles an hour. I didn't think that was first round material, no matter how good of a season I was having. But luckily for me, the Expos, I guess, were in need of a fix right away, and they chose me. But to answer your question, like, it didn't really distract me, because I didn't think about that. Like, my job was, and my focus was with the Titans, and to try to bring back a championship, because that was my goal. My goal was to try to win the World Series.
Yeah, and obviously it was pre-social media, so you didn't have your, phone, and you're sitting there looking at who's saying what and who's tweeting about you and whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was probably someone had to, come down and tell you on their flip phone, like, hey, I think I heard Baseball America said you got drafted by a team in Canada.
So the way I found out was, I remember we were practicing for the Super Regional against ASU, and the Expos scout was there, and he had an Expos hat, and I saw him. I was like, oh, maybe Shane got drafted first round. Had no idea it was me. And then I go down. I see him, because I'm standing at first base. We're taking batting practice. So my job that group was taking throws from shortstop and third base and second base during that round. So that's what I was doing. I was literally standing on first base catching balls. And then I saw him go and talk to Coach Horton, and then I saw him start slowly making his way over in the stands towards first base. And then Coach Horton comes over to me. He's like, hey, someone wants to talk to you. I was like, what? So I went over and talked to him, and he said, congratulations, the Expos just took you in the first round. So I was like, I kind of didn't know what to say, because I was so shocked.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, it's only 25 rounds higher than when you were first drafted out of high school. So, I mean,
yep, exactly.
Not that bad of an improvement.
No.
I mean, did you ever think in high school, did you ever think about, maybe I'll take that 26th round and go to the Padres?
I was honestly, I was very close to doing it, because when they first drafted me, my heart was to go to Fullerton. I didn't even really give it second thought. I remember I was talking to my parents, and I talked to my mom's dad, my grandpa George, about it. He's like, no, you're going to school. I was like, all right, I'm going to school. But then throughout the whole summer, because the draft was a little bit different, they can keep offering you more and more throughout the summer, all the way up until the day before your first day at school. And so they kept going to my games, and my velocity kept increasing. I think after my senior year, I was throwing 88, 89. By the time the season was done, from summer, I was throwing 93, 94, which I don't even know where the heck that came from, because it's not like I was running a whole lot. I was probably eating more Twinkies, if anything. So maybe it was from that. But they kept increasing their offer. So the initial offer was $10,000, and then by the end of the summer, it was $110,000 plus schooling. So I was like, holy cow, I'm 18 years old. They're going to offer me $110,000. But once again, I talked to my parents, I talked to my grandpa, and then the same answer, like, nope, you're going to school. I was like, all right, I'm going to school then. So I had given it some thought, but at the end of the day, it was the best decision I could have made.
Right. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine what 18-year-old Chad would have been like in the minor leagues?
I never would have talked. I probably would have been out of baseball by the time I was like 23.
Jesus. I mean, yeah, like that's so crazy to think like you're going to bring a kid in and he's a professional with that kind of money, understand the business, but then he makes literally nothing week to week. He's traveling around, he's in a bus, and he's got to compete against other guys now. It's not high school anymore. It's not fun. Right? You got guys who are going off to never play baseball again, junior college kids, maybe there's a Division I kid in your whole league. Now you're playing against guys who want to kill you because they're looking for your playing time.
Yep, exactly. It's different, and for me, I wish it's kind of weird because I wish high school kids weren't able to get drafted, because to me, you need to be mature, and you need to mature in college, and because college helps you out a lot. If you're not mature enough to handle the grind of playing baseball on a daily basis and be away from your parents, because to be honest, like a lot of these kids who get drafted, it's a little bit different now, but back then a lot of the kids had never been away from their parents. So once they get drafted and they're being shipped off to Arizona or Florida or Idaho Falls, or it's the first time of being away from the parents, and they don't know how to handle themselves, and a lot of kids end up getting in trouble because they're not mature enough to handle it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you touched on it. You said, when you went to the Expos, how was that experience? We're done in June and you get drafted. What's your next summer plans look like? Well, so the minute I got we got knocked out against Stanford, against Stanford, I touched base with the Expos. I was like, just give me a week, I'll sign right away. Just give me a week. They're like, okay, no problem. So a week goes by. They come to my parents' house, and within 30 seconds, I sign.
Jesus, you're such a negotiator. God.
Yep. I didn't have it aged at the time. It was myself and my parents, and my parents left it up to me. And the minute I got the offer, I looked at my parents and it was like, I told them, like, this is the most money I've ever thought I'd ever make in my entire life. So I got the pen and I signed right away. And I think it kind of, I think the two scouts that were sitting in my parents' dining table were a little thrown back by it, because they weren't really thinking that I was going to sign that quickly. They probably were thinking that I was going to try to get a little bit more money, but I was like, nope, I'm good. Just tell me where to go.
Does this deal come with Cheetos? That's
pretty much, yeah. Or Joe Cola.
Joe Cola. So, okay, you signed, and then what? What do they have in, you're a week from being hot in Omaha. What's the plan for you?
So right after I signed, they flew me out to New York because the Expos were playing the Mets. So they flew me out to New York. I threw a bullpen in front of all their top brass. Their entire front office was there. Frank Robinson was there, so I had a chance to meet Frank, who was the most intimidating person I've ever met in my entire life. I don't think I realized how big of a person he was and how mean he looked. Yeah. So I meet him. I know exactly who he was. I was very educated on baseball. I grew up watching it. My dad was a huge fan. So I meet him, and then I'm throwing a bullpen in front of one of the greatest players in the history of the game. And so I proceed to throw 20 pitches. 19 of them were straight in the dirt. So I'm not even exaggerating at all. 19 of them were in the dirt. And I remember my dad overheard Frank asking the guys who drafted me, are like, this is our first rounder. So I was like, well, my career is done before it even started. So, but luckily, I was sent down to Florida. I went straight to high A, and I threw in 19 games. And then at the end of the A-ball season, I was all packed up, ready to go home. I was excited, kind of frustrated because I hadn't thrown in about a week and a half. So I didn't know what was going on. And right after the game ended in A-ball, they called me in the coach's office, and the scout who drafted me was there. And I was like, what are you doing here? And they proceeded to tell me that I was getting called up. And the reason why I hadn't been throwing for the last week and a half, because they wanted my arm to be fresh. So I was like, oh my, I couldn't believe it. I did not think at all that I would be playing Major League Baseball. Like it was always my dream, and even as a first rounder, like I didn't, I was very realistic. I didn't think, that I was guaranteed to make it and to be called up, a month after signing and a month after playing against Stanford and Omaha. I was up in the big leagues. Like it was crazy to me.
I mean, do you call home? Are you stunned? Like what? I mean, are you getting night sweats? What's your body doing?
I don't think I slept the entire night because I remember I grabbed my little Nokia flip phone, started calling all my parents. I was calling my grandparents, my friends, letting everybody know. Basically, if you're in my phone book, I was giving you a call that what's going on. So then the next morning, because the Expos are playing in Florida against the Marlins, and that's the year that they won it. So they're really good. So they're like, but make sure you get plenty of sleep because you're catching the van down to Fort Lauderdale to play the Marlins at 8:00 in the morning. I was like, all right, I'll be there. So hopped in the van. It was a white minivan, and they drove me down from Brevard County down to Fort Lauderdale. And I think I might have pitched that same night. Yeah, I did. I pitched that same night, and I think the first guy I faced was Miguel Cabrera.
Oh
in his first year up, when he looked like he was a skinny shortstop.
Yeah.
And luckily he flew out. And I remember I got the first two guys out that I faced. It was Miguel Cabrera and Alex Gonzalez. They both flew out. And then the third hitter I faced was Carl Pavano, the freaking pitcher of all people. And I kind of realized where I was, and my legs started to shake. I got super nervous, and I proceeded to throw 4 straight fastballs nowhere near the plate, and I hit the backstop on 4 straight fastballs, walking the pitcher. After getting Miguel Cabrera out in my first hitter I faced. So our catcher comes out, our pitching coach, Randy St. Clair, comes out. They're like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I just realized where I was and what I was doing. So they started laughing. So it kind of helped me calm down a little bit. And the next hitter I faced was Juan Pierre, who was the hardest person to strike out in the league that year. And I proceeded to strike him out, I think, on 4 or 5 straight pitches.
My God, you didn't want to step back and do like a little Ken Ravizza moment and, catch your breath and flush it out. And
you know what? I probably should have done that, but at the time, I don't even know what was going through my mind. I don't think anything was going through my mind other than the fact that I was playing on a Major League Baseball mound.
I mean, did the mound feel weird? The ball didn't feel right? I mean, you must have just at that point just been like out of your body.
Yep, that's exactly how I was. Like I honestly like it almost felt like I was watching myself from above. It was crazy, but I loved it, and I'm still thankful that I had the opportunity to do it, and I'm still kind of in shock that I was able to do it.
I mean, I remember Ryan and I were talking and going, Jesus Christ, he was just in Omaha. He was just in Omaha. He probably still has the plane ticket somewhere in a bag.
Yep.
It was unbelievable.
Yep. And I remember I had I was still using the laptop bag that they had given all the teams. So
yes.
that was one of my bags that I took. Which I still have, by the way.
Of course you do. Of course you do. Yeah. That thing's built for like a giant 2.5-inch Dell computer or something.
Yep.
Oh
exactly.
God. I mean, so how was the rest of that year for you?
It was awesome. I couldn't have been more thankful. It was a little tough at the beginning because the first 2 weeks I was there, nobody talked to me. Nobody said hi. Nobody said, great game. Nothing. I come to find out that the reason they didn't is because they thought I had it in my contract to be up, which a lot of guys at that time, especially a lot of first rounders, they had in their contract that they had to be called up at in September, which I didn't have. I didn't even, it was just me and my parents. We didn't know anything about that. So, once they find out that I didn't have it, and they realized that, I didn't earn my spot up there. Because I think at that time I had my first, I think I only given up like 2 runs, my first month up. I think I went 11 innings, gave up 2 runs, and I had like a 1.6 ERA, I think it was. So that combined with the fact that I didn't run my mouth. I didn't say have any negative quotes about anything, and this was kind of there, just was seen and not heard. I think they respected that a lot. So once those first 2 weeks come up, and they realized that I wasn't there because of my contract, that's when they started opening up. And I remember even after the season was done, Todd Zeal offered to let me fly back home on his private plane back to California, which I jumped on in a heartbeat.
Well, okay. Yeah. That's a perfect segue, because I remember seeing you, I don't know if it was like the year later at the alumni game or something, and you were just like, the training tables are so big that there's just food everywhere.
It was like it was a fat kid's dream. So it was my favorite. It was like every candy bar you could ever think of, pizza, sodas nonstop. It was like literally everything.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I just thought that was the sweetest thing. Like, you were just like, oh, no, nothing about Montreal, nothing about the training tables. I'm like, well, the kid hasn't changed a bit. Was that odd playing in Canada in that Olympic arena?
It was. It didn't feel like, and it's sad to say, because the people in Montreal are super nice, and they do love baseball up there. It's just the stadium itself wasn't the greatest. It wasn't in very good condition. I remember we would go, especially the next year, we were going on a 2-week road trip down to Puerto Rico, and we come back, and then you can see where they just haphazardly put down the turf, because after every homestand we had, they would tear the turf up, because they would always have like monster truck rallies or boat shows or something else that goes on in that stadium. And so they wouldn't really put the turf back in until about a day or two before we got there. So we would go back out there after being on the road for 2 weeks, and you could still see the seams. You could just pull up the mat of the grass and stuff. So it was a little crazy. And I remember you'd have rain puddles in the outfield, which was nuts, because we were playing in a dome, but the roof wasn't the greatest, and you could tell they hadn't put the AC on in a while, because the first time they would fire it up when we were taking batting practice, you could see the pigeon feathers fly out everywhere.
Oh,
so it wasn't like the greatest stadium, but the city of Montreal itself is by far one of my favorite cities. It's such a beautiful place. You don't feel like you're in Canada. You feel like you're in Europe, because it's got the red brick everywhere. I love Toronto, but Toronto still feels like you're in an American city. Mm-hmm. In Montreal, you don't. I mean, people are speaking French. It's clean. The architecture is different. I loved it up there.
Culture shock at all for you? I mean, it's not Chino.
Yeah, there's no cows, that's for sure.
Right. Weather, everything, language barrier. Did you figure out where to, stay and
so I was very lucky. I was extremely lucky. When I got called up, one of the guys who took me under the wing was a guy named Jamie Carroll. And he was by far one of the nicest guys I had ever had a chance to play with. And the reason he took me under his wing is because I played with his brother down in A-ball. And when I got called up, his brother had called him up, told him who I was, told him what kind of person I was, and Jamie took to me right away. And to this day, I still keep in contact every now and then whenever we can. And he's just by far one of the nicest and most respectful guys I've ever been around.
Wow. Yeah, because I got to imagine being in Montreal, that's got to be crazy. It's not being in like Baltimore, Seattle. It's Canada. Right. It's Montreal, right? Mm-hmm. They had the subway underneath. It was
the subway was nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was built for the Olympics, and then they just kind of like, you guys get to play here.
Yep. And another cool thing, but I don't know if it's cool or if we're just kind of different, which I had to get used to was, I mean, we would have 10-day homestands, and I would never be out in the fresh air, because where our apartment was, you could take an elevator down underneath the city, because a lot of the shops are built underneath the street level, and so the elevator was take you straight down to the underground stores, and right there you can catch the subway. The subway would take you straight directly underneath the stadium, and you walk up the ramp, and you're right there in the stadium. So I would never have to go outside. So there were honestly a lot of times where our next road trip, that would be the first time I'd be outside in about a week and a half.
Was that your first time playing in a dome?
It was. Well, no, I take that back, because in 2003 we played at Minnesota.
Oh, so that's
at
right.
the Metrodome, where we didn't play that well. But,
that's right.
But that one was a lot better, even for all the problems that one was a lot better than the one in Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal Stadium always felt like the dome was like an aftermath. Like it just always seemed piecemeal because it was for the Olympics, and they kind of jammed baseball in there and never felt comfortable.
Yeah, because also too, I think the roof was it was added on.
It was added after the Olympics.
Yeah, because I remember, I think when Wallach played there, I don't know if they had the roof on there yet, but I think he might have been right around when they first put it on, and I remember they had a lot of trouble with it because it wasn't like a solid roof. It was kind of flimsy.
I think when Wallach played there, they still had the track.
I think so.
You could see part of the actual lanes of the track behind home plate.
You might be right.
But I mean, you've played, fortunately in your career, you've played in some really hodgepodge stadiums, like playing in Puerto Rico when they played there and playing in RFK, right? I mean, that place was a historical place, and you they go from Montreal to Washington and they play in that shithole. Like, it's just, my God.
But you know what? I enjoyed it. I liked that kind of stuff. It was, I wish I would have been able to play in their new stadium a lot more than I did. Their first year opening it, that was the year that I got hurt. Mm-hmm. But RFK, it had a lot of character to it. Even for how old it was the first time I'd ever seen the fans jump up and down the way they did, because I guess that's what they used to do for the Redskins.
Uh-huh.
So once we played there, we were actually pretty good for the first half of the season. So the fans were doing the same thing, and I honestly thought we were having an earthquake a lot of times because the whole stadium was shaking. So.
Well, you now sound like a parent because you said it had a lot of character. I think the 23-year-old Chad would have said that place was a dump.
You're probably right.
You've looked at a lot of coloring books and said, "Oh, that's beautiful."
Yes, I have.
That's great. Nice job. Oh, Jesus. I mean, okay, so you're 2003, you get up, 4, you get up. Are you in fantasy land thinking like, I'm playing in Yankee Stadium, I'm playing in Fenway, I'm playing in all these stadiums I used to watch on a Saturday afternoon? Mm. Was that like crazy for you those first couple of years?
It was, and it still was until I finally retired. I never got over that. And because to me it was always fun. I mean, playing with guys and playing against guys that I grew up watching. It was one of the best things I could have ever experienced aside from having kids. Being the same clubhouse for the All-Star game as like John Smoltz and Billy Wagner, and then when I was with the Mariners playing alongside Ichiro and playing alongside Jeter and Griffey and A-Rod and who else? Clemens for Team USA. Like, I was like, I'm a 23-year-old kid. Like, what is going on?
I'm from Chino. I shouldn't be here.
Exactly. So, but it was great. Those are all guys that I grew up idolizing. My younger brother Alan was a huge diehard Griffey fan. So when I played with him with Team USA, like, he was in heaven.
Oh yeah.
So it was great, and then to meet these guys and to find out they're just like you and me, and like it was I will be so grateful and forever thankful to have that opportunity.
What was the stadium that really just blew you away?
Oh, let me think. Probably Wrigley.
Okay.
I loved going to Wrigley Field.
What year did you finally go there?
2004 was my first time.
I didn't know like end of September if you made a trip out there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we didn't. I think where did we go? I think we ended up the year in Cincinnati that year. So that was the first year of their new ballpark.
Okay.
But Wrigley Field, the first time I went there, I remember I'm riding on the team bus and headed down there, and I'm used to I'm starting to get used to like where all these stadiums are located. They're often like kind of away from everything, where they have a lot more space. And then I remember we're on the team bus and we're driving through this neighborhood, and all of a sudden this cathedral is just like in the middle, smack dab of this neighborhood. I'm like, now I know why everybody talks about Wrigley. Like, it was crazy. I mean, to have a place like that in the middle of a neighborhood, right across the street from a bunch of houses, it was incredible. And I will never forget my time playing there. It was awesome.
I mean, can you imagine as a kid, little Chad Cordero playing out front of his stoop, and then there's the game going on right there.
I would have been in heaven. I would have tried to sneak in probably every day.
I mean, what young boy wouldn't have thought like, oh, that's it. I've died. I've gone to heaven. That's it. I got the Cubs playing here every day in my front yard.
Mm-hmm. That's if you're a baseball player and you have a chance to grow up around that. I mean, gosh, you are the luckiest kid alive in my book.
Right. I mean, there's nothing like that anywhere else. Even today, like if you're in Anaheim and you're a block away, you got to go, driveways and parking lots and all this stuff, freeways. Yep. Dodger Stadium, you go uphill. By the time you get there, you're dead. I mean, this literally, you roll out of your front yard and you could play butts up on the side of the stadium.
Exactly. And you know what? I think why I liked Wrigley Field so much was because it kind of reminded me of Rosenblatt. It kind of had that same neighborhood feel. Because with Rosenblatt, you had those homes that were directly across the street that probably had been there for 100 years or whatever it was.
Right.
And the people there were so super friendly. I mean, you could walk from house to house and meet different people. And that's, for me, when I went to Wrigley, that's how it was. So it kind of had that same feel. I think that's why I like it so much.
What were you drinking in 2004? What ice cream? What energy drink? Or not 4? I'm sorry, 2005. Because 2005, that's when you put it together. Like all of a sudden, you were Chad Cordero in the major leagues, as if you were still wagging your finger at ASU in 2003. Like, what the hell were you doing?
I was going to 7-Eleven every day to get me a Slurpee. That was my routine. Myself and one of my teammates, we roomed together out in Alexandria. And I remember one time he was like, let's stop and get a Slurpee. I was like, okay, let's do it. And then I remember it was the start of our 10-game winning streak for the Nationals. So we did that for 10 days straight. And I was like, you know what, I'm still doing pretty well even after we lost. So I'm going to keep doing it. So I literally went to 7-Eleven every day and got me a Slurpee with every single flavor that they had. Every day.
Didn't matter if it was like pina colada, cherry Coke, and blue raspberry.
If they didn't go together, they were going into my Slurpee.
Oh my God! That's it. I was thinking maybe you worked on like a cutter. All right.
No.
You decided to do a little incline bench press, but no, it was 7-Eleven.
It was Slurpees, and I had my Misfit shirt underneath. That was what I was doing. I still threw nothing but fastballs. I want to say I maybe threw a handful of sliders and a handful of curveball or changeups that entire year. So nothing different from what I was doing when I was at Fullerton. Because I remember, and nobody ever believes me, but I swear up and down, and I'm not even joking. My junior year in Fullerton, I threw 10 off-speed pitches the entire year. And that's pretty much what I was doing in 2005, was throwing nothing but fastballs.
But it was location. You were just hitting your spots.
Yep, going up and down, in and out. And for me, that was 4 different pitches, so that's all I needed.
I mean, when did it start to feel good? Was it April? Was it May? Like, you're like, my arm slot is just perfect. Whatever I tell it to do, it does.
Probably June.
Okay.
Because that was a month where I recorded the 15 saves to tie the record.
Right.
And so that's when everything was just firing on all cylinders. I mean, it was, I couldn't miss my spot. And I don't know, I can't even honestly remember what the heck I was doing right at that time. It just, everything felt good. My arm felt good. And even the days where I'd thrown 4 or 5 days in a row, my arm still felt great.
I mean, is that weird to be in, like, basketball players, baseball players, they'll say the zone, right? Jordan drops, 69. Kobe does, I was at the 81 game, whatever. But, like, did it feel that incredible for a year to be like, wow, I'm doing it against professionals, not against Missouri State, Christian Valley, and UC Davis, Berkeley. Like, you're crushing pros. Yep.
And it felt really good, but honestly, like, I wasn't even really thinking about it too much. I was just enjoying the moment, and enjoying that I was playing Major League Baseball and doing pretty well at it. Like, I wasn't really overthinking about like my arm side or nothing like that. I just knew it felt really good. So I like I said, I was enjoying my time and hoping it wouldn't come to an end.
What did it mean to you being selected in the All-Star game that year?
Oh, same. Once again, I didn't even think that was going to happen. Just like me being drafted in the first round, I didn't think I was going to be an All-Star. There was, in my eyes, there was a lot more guys that were a lot better than me. I didn't throw hard. I threw 89, 90 at the hardest. You had guys like Billy Wagner that year who were throwing 100 and saving I don't know how many games, even Trevor Hoffman too. So I didn't think I was going to make the team, but once Frank announced it, I remember we had a team meeting before our last game in Chicago against the Cubs, and he brought everybody together, and he announced that myself and Livan Hernandez were the selections for the Nationals for the All-Star game, and I couldn't believe it. I think my jaw dropped. And then I think I froze for a couple minutes, and I remember our catcher, Brian Snyder, he was like, go call your mom, go call your parents. So I was like, okay. So I went to my locker, grabbed my phone, and I went down to the back room where they did all the wash for the teams, and called my parents right there, and told them what happened. I think I might start crying too. So it was exciting.
And you get in the game, you face one guy, you get Ivan Rodríguez, and you strike him out on fastballs. I mean, were you worried you might not get in the game?
A little bit, but towards the end of at the beginning of the eighth inning, I remember Tony La Russa called down to the bullpen, and he specifically asked to speak with me. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I get on the bullpen phone, I talk to him, and he's like, are you feeling up to getting the last out of the eighth inning? I was like, heck yeah. He's like, all right. He's like, you got the third out of the eighth inning. I was like, all right, you got it. So, because for me, like, I kind of understood that it may never happen again, that I may never get that opportunity to play in a game and or to play in an All-Star game again. So the minute he asked if I wanted to throw, I jumped all over it. I didn't want to miss that opportunity. So I remember I was kind of nervous because Jake Peavy was on the mound, and there was one out, and there's a runner on first base, and he's notorious for getting ground balls. That's how type of he was. So I was kind of nervous and kind of worried that he was going to get a ground ball and get a double play out of it. But I think whoever he was facing ended up flying out. And then I came in and was able to face Pudge in Detroit, and he was playing for the Tigers at the time. So to be able to face him in Detroit and at the All-Star game and then strike him out in front of his home fans, it was an incredible feeling.
It's unbelievable.
I think I threw him a slider too to strike him out.
Oh, look at you!
Yeah.
Look at you, mixing it up on the catcher.
Yeah.
Was that year ends? Are you thinking when you go into 06, like it's going to be the same? Everything's feeling the same. Like
yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I was very confident going in. 06 was a lot different. I think I had 30 saves. I think that year, so I still had a good year. Was it as good as the year before? No, not close.
Because your ERA went up. I know that.
Yeah, it went up by a point. I think it was. The year before I was like 1.8.
1.82 to 3.19. Yeah.
Yeah. So it gone up a little bit, but I was also in 2006. I was also being used a lot differently too.
What were they doing?
Robbins, I was throwing a lot more than what I was throwing the year before. So I wasn't like a conventional closer that year. I wasn't coming in for a one inning save. Frank was using it as me as a setup man slash closer. So I was coming in the eighth inning a lot, and I was still throwing multiple days in a row. So my arm, it was taking a little bit of toll on my arm. Like I was throwing a lot more than the year before. So I think that might have had something to do with it. But at the same time, I didn't have my location was a little bit off, and I ended up leaving a lot more pitches over the middle of the plate. So that kind of contributed to the higher ERA. But it was still a great year. I still had 30 saves that year. ERA was wasn't where it needed to be, but I still got the job done. I think I blew less saves than I did the year before. So I still think it was a very good year. But it just wasn't as magical as the previous one.
Is that something they discuss with you and say, hey, we're going to maybe possibly extend your innings and kind of do something, in the eighth and I want 4 outs instead of 3?
I thought they would, but they didn't. It just kind of happened because our relievers at the time, they were kind of struggling. And they trusted me to go out there and get outs. And, I didn't mind it. Like whatever they needed me to do, I was going to do. So, but they didn't really talk to me about it. They just kind of did it, and I was okay with it. I wasn't going to complain. I was in the big leagues, and I was a closer. So whatever, if they needed me to get 9 outs, I would do whatever to get 9 outs. But, they asked, a lot of times they asked me to go two innings or more, 2 innings, and I did it.
How was your relationship at that point, right? Because in college, you probably spent way much more time with Dave than you did with George as the pitching coach.
Right.
Was it that same way for you in the majors with the Nationals, or was Frank involved in some of those decisions as well?
It was mostly the pitching coach's decision, but Frank did have a hand in it. But I would talk to Frank all the time, and I credit Frank for my career. I don't think I would have had the career I had without him. He had a lot of confidence in me, and he could have easily taken me out of the closer role a few times, and he didn't. He trusted me, and he always had my back. And I remember he would call me into his office every now and then just to kind of encourage me, and that always made me feel good, because he didn't do that for everybody, at all. So for him to call me into the office every now and then and just kind of talk to me and make me feel good about myself and remind me how good I was, that gave me a lot of confidence, because here he is, one of the greatest players to ever put on a uniform, is saying he has confidence in me. I was like, I have to listen. He doesn't do that for everybody.
What do you think he saw in you to give you that kind of attention, or at least attention to detail?
I honestly, I don't know. I think he respected me just because of the fact that like I said earlier, I wasn't cocky. I didn't talk a whole lot. I just kind of kept to myself and just never complained. And just whatever they asked me to do, I did it. And for Frank, I think that's what he liked. He was a very hard-nosed player. He kind of didn't get along with some of the new school type of players, like the ones who didn't give their full effort, because when he was playing, that's what he liked, and that's what I gave. And I think that might have been what he liked.
Yeah, no one's ever going to say, "Oh, Chad Cordero, the guy with the gold necklace and the flashy, walk-off back flip kind of." That's not you. No, he probably had to make sure, is he in the bullpen? Has anybody seen him?
You seen the guy with the flat bill who walks like a duck?
Yeah, that guy. Is he here? The real athletic-looking one.
Yeah.
He probably did see a little bit of, you were the old school mentality. I shut up, I get my job done, and I'm heard when I'm on the mound, not on radio shows and on Twitter and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what it was. I think we had a mutual respect for each other, and I loved Frank. And like I said, if I didn't have him as a manager coming up, I don't know if I would have had the career that I had.
Right. Now, 07's a little tough for you, right? You're dealing with your grandmother's passing.
Right.
Pitching's not going as well. How for you was that? You're not 18 anymore, but still, you have emotions. You're human. Your grandma doesn't live down the street, so you can't just run over and see her. How was that for you? Because people talk about mental health now. That was not discussed or even a words put together in a sentence in 2007.
Right. Yeah. It was tough. Because I was on the East Coast. Like I said, I couldn't just hop in the car and come see my family. So I was kind of dealing with and getting all the information from my dad, because it was his mom, on everything that was going on. And I remember I came home for about a week during the middle of the season because to see her, to be with my family, to kind of regroup. And luckily, I was able to do that. I saw her, and she passed away a short time after that. But that was, it's tough. It's when you're, everybody thinks that you're a professional athlete, you're mentally tough, which we pretty much are. But there's a lot of stuff that you go through that people don't really realize. And the death of a family member when you're on the opposite coast, that takes a toll on you.
Right. If you were Chad Cordero, the lawyer, and you worked in Georgetown, you would have gone home. Yep. Everybody just says, well, you wear a funny outfit and you throw a ball around, you've got to stay.
Yep.
Well, the law office would have taken care of the needs for a week. You still are human, and you have those relationships you still have to tend to.
Yep, exactly.
So was that looked upon oddly in 2007? Was there any blowback, media, teammates?
Not really. They were all very supportive of it, because it is part of our collective bargaining agreement. So you are allowed to take bereavement leave, and I think you're able to get up to 7 days. And so I took all 7 days, and they were very supportive of it. I remember I was talking to a couple of teammates throughout the whole week, and I texted back and forth with Frank a little bit about it, and they were very supportive. So, because I think they just wanted they wanted to make sure that I was okay, because when I came back, I was like a totally different pitcher.
Yeah,
I felt good again. I was rejuvenated, and I think that's what I needed to just be with family for a little bit.
Right, kind of cleanse your palate, wipe your mind free of it. Because you come back starting May 12th, and you go 12 consecutive appearances without giving out a run.
Yep, and sometimes you need that. It's like it's just like a change of scenery. Just go on vacation for a couple of days. Just kind of clear your mind a little, because the season it's tough. You're playing every day. You're playing every day, and yes, we do play a sport for a living, and a lot of people will make fun of that, but it does take a toll on your body with how much you travel, how much you're working out. Because I actually was working out at that time, and running. So you're pitching, you're working out, you're running, you're traveling. Sometimes you're hitting 3 different time zones in 1 week, and you're not getting a whole lot of sleep, because there are times where you have a night game and then you're traveling that same night. Mm-hmm. So your body's not getting a whole lot of rest, because you're trying to get sleep on a plane. It takes a toll on you. So, yeah. And then I don't think a lot of people really realize how difficult it can be.
Yeah, it's not as sexy as it looks. It is work. Yeah.
Because I remember we had one road trip. I remember we were playing, I forget what year it was. It might have been 2006. But we had the Sunday night ESPN game, and it started at 8:00 in DC, and we were playing the Mets. And then we were flying out that night to come out to LA, and we had a game that next day. And I remember there was a slight rain delay, so we didn't get done with the game until about 11:30 that night. And so by the time we got on the plane, it was around 2:30 in the morning. And so we didn't land in LA until around 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and we had a game that same day. So, and then by the time we got to the hotel, was around, I think I want to say we got there around 8 in the morning because of LA traffic, and we were flying from LAX to Pasadena, or driving from LAX to Pasadena. So it wasn't exactly close. So we didn't get back to the hotel until about 8, and we had a game that night. So luckily for us, Frank was like, get sleep, don't show up to the ballpark until 5 o'clock. And our game was at 7. So we were able to grab some sleep. But remember that trip, it was tough, because nobody really caught up on their sleep and recovered from that.
Yeah, that's the lovely part of there's no way you should be going from the East Coast to the West Coast. Like that ESPN game, you should not have that. No way.
Right.
That should have been a 1 o'clock afternoon game, and then you guys get out of there and get into LA at midnight instead of 7 a.m. Oh, yeah. I used to hate that. Oh, God.
Yep.
So you go on that run. You're the second youngest guy to get to 100 saves in Major League Baseball history. I mean, you're doing well. You close out RFK Stadium. God love you. You're just closing stadiums left and right. Were you thinking, okay, where are you now in your contract? You're 4 years in.
Right.
Is that something now that's coming up and that you've got to deal with?
Not really, because I was still going year to year, because I was in arbitration. I was arbitration eligible.
Okay.
At that point, so I let my agent deal with that. I knew they probably weren't going to offer me a multi-year deal at that time, so I kind of wasn't really worried about it. I was just kind of focused on playing, and whatever happened in arbitration happened. I let my agent at the time deal with that, because he knew more about that kind of stuff than I did. So
okay.
It wasn't going to do me any good worrying about it.
Right. So in 2008, you start the season and you decided to tear parts of your shoulder off. I mean, as athletic as you are, why the shoulder? I definitely would have thought it would have been a rolled ankle or a blown knee on the way you land.
Yep, I thought so too. I thought maybe I would have, maybe had an ACL injury, or maybe blew out all my cartilage in my knee or something like that. But shoulder, not so much.
I mean, what were you doing when it happened? Were you throwing?
Yep, I was playing catch, and I remember It was the first game of the year, so we had the very first game of the entire year against the Braves. We were opening up the new season, we were opening up the new stadium in DC. And I remember I was playing catch, and I just felt this sharp pain go from my shoulder down to my elbow, and I'd never felt like anything like that before. So I stopped playing catch. I went in, talked to the trainers, and they were really concerned. So they shut me down that night. They sent me out to get an MRI that next day. So I got an MRI, came back that I had a slightly torn labrum. And the way it was worded by the team physician was, it's really nothing to worry about. Most pitchers will have something like this. So I was like, and I listened to them. So they're like, we're going to treat it as tendonitis. I was like, okay. So I got a cortisone shot, was rehabbing, but it really wasn't feeling all that great. I remember I came back from the disabled list about 2 weeks later, and I was throwing like 82 or 83 miles an hour. I mean, I didn't throw that hard to begin with, but 82 or 83 miles an hour for a fastball, that's not very good.
No, that's not going to cut it there, Chad.
Yeah. So, but I was still getting the job done, which was crazy to me. Like, I think my location was actually a lot better than when I was throwing a little bit harder. But it was still giving me issues. And I remember I was throwing in a game. I came back. I think I'd thrown about 7 or 8 games, I think it was, and we were playing the Braves again at home. And I was trying to close out, trying to get my first save of the season, and I threw a pitch, and I heard what sounded like a piece of paper ripping.
Oh,
and I didn't really. I felt a tug, but it didn't really hurt. So I was like, okay, well, that was odd. And my stupid self went through one more pitch after that, and that's when it happened. So I ended up tearing my lat at that time. So that's really what kind of set me down. And I was rehabbing in Florida, trying to figure out what was going on. And during that time, I probably had about another 3 or 4 MRIs. They all said I had a slightly torn labrum and torn lat. But there was nothing that they can do for the lat. They just let it kind of heal on its own.
Okay.
They didn't want to have surgery, so I was rehabbing that in Florida, and it wasn't getting any better. So I finally convinced them to let me fly out to Anaheim to go see Dr. Joe. And so the minute I saw him, he kind of had this like look on his face that I knew right off the bat wasn't a good look. And he was like, "You should have had surgery 2 months ago." So he was like, "It's not a slightly torn labrum. You actually have it's a severely torn labrum in there." And then so they did surgery about a week later. And
okay, wait. How does he know that? And these other quote unquote professionals think you have a torn rotator nail. Like, how did they not know that?
I'm not sure if I should probably talk about that.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, that's the crazy part. Like, wow.
Yeah. There was some stuff I think that was going on behind the scenes.
Sure. But that's the frightening part, isn't it? It's your health. It is.
Yep.
What if those same people were looking at your dad's EKG going, "Oh, you're fine. Just have some more pork grinds."
Yep. It would have been bad. It would have been really bad. So.
Jesus. So Job takes care of you, thank God.
Yep. He takes care of me. I had the surgery a week later, and then when I go in have the surgery, he finds not only a torn labrum, he finds fraying of the labrum, and he also finds a torn bicep as well.
Oh, so I thought you were going to say like a pocket watch or something. Well, that's not so bad. Just torn muscles.
Oh, yeah. So I had the torn labrum, the torn lat, the torn bicep, fraying of the labrum. So they end up giving me 2, and I still have 2 anchors in my shoulder to this day. So, that put me out for the rest of the year and may help or had me rehab for the next year and a half after that.
Yeah, because it doesn't like that kind of spoiled your relationship with them. Right? Because that's you hear the radio interview about the GM and how they're going to, deal with you. And that cannot be kosher. You must have just lost your mind.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked and kind of sad about it. I knew how the business was. I knew how I wasn't going to get offered a contract the next year. With someone who has a shoulder surgery or isn't going to, get the same type of deal that anybody else would be getting. So I knew that, I knew it was a business part, but to find out the way I did and to find out that the GM had lied about it was kind of not the greatest thing in the world.
I'll say shitty. So, I'll say it. Yeah. That was kind of shitty.
Yeah.
So what's your mindset? I guess this goes back to your mental health again, where it's just kind of like, you got to get your arm right. It's not like, I guess you might've been more you might have been better off if you maybe blown an ACL on your plant
Right.
leg, but you're always your shoulder, that thing that makes you your money is the worrisome thing, right? If you maybe lost a pinky on your left hand, it wouldn't have been so bad. But
Right.
where are you at mentally going, okay, Chad, what are we doing here, buddy?
Yeah, it was tough, because at that time I thought my career was probably going to be over, because at that stage of the shoulder injuries and where the shoulder surgery was, and it's lifeless, how it was. It was kind of comparable to how Tommy John's surgery was when it first came out. It was kind of hit or miss. If you came back, it was like a 70% chance that you were never going to come back. And so that's how the shoulder was at that time.
Really?
So, oh yeah. So it was kind of like the kiss of death. Like it was, the minute you had pitchers had a shoulder injury, especially at labrum, a lot of them for the most part were not coming back. So that was in the back of my head, because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I didn't know what my career was going to be like after that. Was I done? Am I finished? Is it going to take me 2 or 3 years to come back? I didn't know. So it was tough, trying to figure out what my future was gonna be like. It was very uncertain. That's for sure. But I was still hopeful that I was gonna come back. I was still doing everything I could to strengthen my shoulder and get in good shape and try to come back, as quickly as possible.
I mean, now they do Tommy John like Botox. I mean, everybody just gets a little Tommy John here and there. It's not a big deal, but the shoulder was still voodoo.
Yep. And nowadays the shoulder right now is very similar to how Tommy John was 10 years ago. It's you have the surgery and you might be out for a year, but you're coming back.
Wow.
And unfortunately at that time when I got it, it just wasn't, the surgeries or the knowledge of the shoulder just wasn't as good as it is now.
Yeah. So man, I mean, did you come home? Were you talking to anybody? Like who were you leaning on just to keep your mind right? You didn't just jump off a pier.
Yeah, I came home. At the time, I was engaged to my ex-wife now.
Yeah.
At the time, because we were planning our wedding at that time because we were getting married that off season. So I came home, was able to help out with the planning of that. Was able to hang out with my parents and my family, my brothers and everybody, see my grandparents. So I think that's what kind of helped me out. If I had still been in DC, it would have been tough. I would have loved to have been there with my teammates, but the minute the doctor said, hey, you have a chance to go home if you want to, you can rehab with Dr. Job's people, I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So
are you in, or at least your manager or your agent, in contact with the club saying, Chad's doing this, Chad's looking good, Chad's brushing his teeth, he wants to throw, and because it's such a weird limbo. You're like this free agent, but you got a dent in you.
Yeah. So he was talking to a lot of teams, and he was talking to a lot of teams that had interest in trading for me the year before I got hurt.
Okay.
So he was talking to them, and I remember at the time I think the Phillies were interested in doing something with me even after my surgery, but unfortunately it didn't work out. And then the Mariners came in, kind of out of nowhere and offered, and they were like, yeah, we'll do his rehab. Well, you can come out to Arizona. But they were perfectly aware that I was probably not going to throw for them at all that year. But they were okay with me coming out, signing me to a deal, and just having me rehab the entire year, because that following year is when I made it back up in 2010.
Right. I mean, was that really like a relief off of your mind that you're back in the big leagues and you're wearing that uniform and not a, Arizona something Mariner jersey or whatever you were wearing, a Seattle jersey?
Yep. Yeah, it was a huge relief, because like I said earlier, I didn't know if I was going to ever be back in the big leagues again, and I was very fortunate. The Mariners, they gave me a chance. They stuck with me. They could have released me at any point during that first year that I was rehabbing, and they didn't. And so to be able to have a chance to be called up, and then to know that I was called up, I was the person that called up when Griffey decided to retire mid-year. That made it even more cool for me. So, but it was, it was very special. I was very happy and very, very blessed and very lucky to have made it back up.
I mean, you're only 28. You're just a kid. I mean, you probably had 14 hairs on your face. You're a child.
That's more than I have right now. I still can't grow a beard.
So you get back to the Mariners. What are you thinking? Okay, like I got to get right. I got to throw strikes now, and I got to be me. That's a lot of pressure on yourself.
Yeah,
because you were a guy, and you're going, and you're ready to beat it. You're not like the middle reliever who just happens to be left-handed. So you get a 20-year career out of it. You were skyrocketing, and people were looking at you. So are you at that time with the Mariners thinking, let's go, Chad. Let's be right. Let's be that guy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I think I was putting a lot of pressure on myself at that time, because like you said, I was that guy, like a guy that, just 2 years prior for the most part.
Yeah.
3 years prior. So I still felt like I could do that. And I wanted to get back there. I was doing everything I could to get back there, and I felt really good. Unfortunately, my arm just wasn't the same. I didn't have that same zip, and my location was off. And that's what I relied on. As a guy who doesn't throw that hard, you have to make sure you hit your spots, and I just wasn't able to do that. So because I had to pretty much relearn how to throw, and coming back, I hadn't really found my arm slot yet.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah.
So then you spend like 3 years bouncing. You're like in Vegas and Salt Lake, and you got all crazy in 2013, and you thought, well, I want to do this one more time with the Angels of all people.
Yeah.
That's those couple years were. I mean, what was that like bouncing around?
It was tough because like the off season after making it back up to with the Mariners, I felt like I was in a good place. I felt like I was back because even after I got released by the Mariners, I'd been picked up by the Mets. I finished out the year in AAA in Buffalo with the Mets, and I was doing pretty well. I think I had a 0 ERA, so I felt like I was back. My confidence was back. My location was back. Everything I felt like was there that I needed to hopefully get a job for the next year and have a chance to make it to the big leagues out of spring training. But the off season of 2010, after being back up with the Mariners, is when my daughter passed away. So that really took it. So that took a huge toll on me.
I mean, honestly, how did you come back at all?
To be honest, I don't even know. It was tough. I think I had done it. I did it because it was something that kind of helped me grieve. I think it would have been tougher if I was at home, just reliving everything. And, luckily my wife, or my ex-wife, she was there with me at the time with Toronto. Riley, our oldest, she was there. So I think that really kind of helped, but I don't even know. I was in a fog. I remember after it happened, I didn't realize, what was going on, to be honest. Like I had no idea. I wasn't throwing, wasn't playing catch, wasn't working out. I wasn't doing anything. And I was kind of surprised that the Blue Jays even, wanted me to come out. I was very grateful for the fact that they did, but I was kind of surprised. And, but I don't know. I don't know how I did it. It was tough, and, it still is tough to this day.
Right. I mean, what happened with you? So I had already had 3 boys at the time. Only had 3 boys, had 3 boys at the time. And I remember when it happened, telling my wife, I go, yeah, like this is the situation. She goes, oh yeah, that was something I was very much aware of. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm a father of 3. Why was I not aware of like sudden, infant death syndrome? And she's like, well, you're not paying attention. I'm breastfeeding. I'm doing diapers. I probably had mentioned it. Like, right. Was that something even on your radar when you had Riley? Like, it's something that happens? Yep.
We understood there was a possibility, but we did know we thought at the time was rare, which we find out it's really not that rare. We thought about it, but we thought we were, everything. We didn't think it would happen to us.
Sure.
And unfortunately it did, and what makes it even worse is it happened at my parents' house. We weren't even there with her when it happened. And so I had felt bad for my parents because I remember the day that I still remember the day exactly what happened. I remember my wife, she was a former gymnast at Fullerton. And so she still had some nagging injuries. So she had surgery on one of her ankles. And so it was right before Christmas. And so we were just like, okay, we'll drop off the kids with my parents. They can watch them. You can relax. We'll finish up our Christmas shopping, and then we'll go pick them up on Sunday. So I remember that day, my parents both knew that we were dropping them off. My dad was supposed to go. I think he was supposed to go to a funeral that day for one of my teammates at Fullerton for his mom. and he canceled because he knew we were bringing the kids over, so he didn't end up going. And he was ranting and raving about this new app on the phone about CPR, not knowing that he was going to have to do it that night. And so we dropped him off, we said our goodbyes, and then that night my mom found Tehya. And so my dad was having to use that app that he was just ranting and raving about in the morning to us on our daughter. So it was tough. It was very hard for on them. It was very hard on us for a very long time. But we all forgave them. We don't blame them for anything, because it wasn't their fault. But
Right.
SIDS is just something that it happens. They have kind of an idea of what it is now, but they still don't know for sure.
Yeah, like in my research for it, like, they say these things will help lessen the percentage, but they said there's no guarantee. It's something you have to be aware of, and it's like, holy crap!
And there's no way to test for it. You have no idea. And the thinking is now it's like I think it's the infant serotonin levels aren't the same as on normal babies or on healthy babies, but there's really no way of testing it. So, and that because the serotonin they acts as like an inner alarm clock for the baby. It tells the babies to wake up. And unfortunately, the ones for SIDS, from what they're thinking is, what happens is their body doesn't tell them to wake up, and they just continue sleeping, and their breathing gets tougher and tougher.
Right. So, I mean, in that period of time for you, was it an escape for baseball, or was it an anchor, like just dragging you down because you want to be with the family and grieve, and you've got baseball coming?
I think at the time I thought it was something that helped me out, but looking back, it probably wasn't the best decision. I could have made it probably, it would have been a lot, I think, easier if I would have just stayed home. But my family and Jamie, and then they all said, no, go do it. Like this, it'll help. And
right.
Like I said, we all thought it did, but I think it would have been a lot better if I had stayed home.
Hindsight, you don't know. You stay home.
Yeah.
If you did the other way, you stay home. Everybody said, "Get this lump out of here. He's driving us nuts."
Yeah. Yeah.
When you finally said, "Okay," in 13, like, this is it, I'm done. What did that feel like? And it's weird because I'm saying this, and I'm looking at statistically your numbers. You're 31 years old.
Yeah.
You're that's so young.
Yeah, it was, I was at peace for it. I knew, after being out of the game for about a year and a half after Tehya passed away, I just wanted to give it one more shot, just kind of see if I had it. And I thought I was very happy with how I did that year. And so looking back, I will never be angry. I will never, be upset about what happened or me not getting another job after that. I was at peace. I went out there and gave it all I had for one more year. Riley was able to see me play for a little bit. She was still kind of young to where she doesn't really remember anything, but she was able to see me play. And I think that's what really mattered to me, was my kids were actually able to see me play, because before that they weren't able to see me play. Right.
Yeah. You were just some blob on a TV. No one knew who you were.
Yeah.
That was my first year with the Angels. And I remember you were with the Inland Empire 66ers, and I'm like, we got to go do a story on this guy. It'll be great. Oh yeah. Cause I didn't do spring training, so I missed you. And, my first day was on a flight to Cincinnati, and I was just like, oh, I got to keep track of him. That'd be great. If he comes up, it'll be fantastic. And you were gone in 6 games. Shit.
Yeah.
I was going to have a Slurpee with him.
A Slurpee, a Joe Cola, and a hot dog.
So where do you find yourself at that point? You're 31 years old. What are you doing? What's your plan?
At the time, I didn't know. I was kind of enjoying actual retirement, because before, when I was a year and a half, I enjoyed myself. I had gone back to DC throughout the first pitch of one of the games. I did a clinic out there, but I didn't feel like I was actually retired. And so after 2013, I was like, you know what, I'm going to enjoy myself for a little bit. Be there with the family. Take my kids to drop them off at school in the morning, and enjoy just being a dad, and that's what I did. Was that did it come natural, being Mr. Mom all of a sudden? I loved it. Did you? I absolutely loved it. Oh yeah. That's good. That's good. Oh, I loved it. So where did you find then the idea
is it with Riley like to coach?
Hookie approached me actually about it because I remember, was it 2014? Santa Margarita was playing in the championship game for high school, and they're playing at Dodger Stadium. So I was like, I'm gonna go down there and watch. And so I took my kids down there, watched. I think my brother went with me. And we watched the game, and Hookie was there. And so I saw him. He was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Nothing." And he was like, "You should come out and be our undergrad." I was like, "All right." So I thought about it and really didn't want to go back to school, but I was like, you know what, this is a good opportunity. So I came in. Was it spring of 2015, and began my coaching career. And I loved it.
Was it a natural fit? Did you feel like you had coaching ability? Like, because you're not the biggest blabber in the world. So like, did you find it natural, like when to step in, when pull someone aside?
It took a little bit of time, but luckily I had Dietrich there with me. Okay. And Dietrich was a huge help as far as coaching goes. Awesome person, very knowledgeable, and he was something that, something that I could look up to and talk to. So he helped me out a lot. I mean, they had me down the bullpen the whole time, and that's where I love to be. I love the bullpen anyways. So I was a bullpen coach, and they, it took some time to get used to it, but because I had to remind myself I wasn't going the game. So I remember the night before our very first game, I had a dream, or actually I want to call it a nightmare, because I remember I was coaching in the dream at Fullerton. I was arguing with Dietrich in my dream or my nightmare that I wanted to go in and he wouldn't let me. And like we were cussing each other out in my nightmare. So I think that's when I realized, okay, you guys take a step back and realize you're not a player anymore. You're an actual coach and you can't play anymore. So, but yeah, like I remember it vividly. Like it was in my dream, I was in the bullpen. I was trying to jump over the fence and go in, and Dietrich was having to hold me back and say, "You're not allowed to go pitch."
That was it. Your stirrups were torn off, and you're just a coach.
Yep, exactly. And I think I'm not even joking. That's when I realized, okay, you know what, Chad, you're not a player anymore. Like those days are done. You're just literally just a coach. You're here to help out the kids.
That's when, like the movie script, they take the page and they turn it and they go next chapter.
Yep. Putting threw my cleats in the trash, and all right, give me my coaching shoes. And let me put my pants up to the coaching mids like Cookie and Horton used to wear.
Pull them up high.
Yep, and I'll gain about 30 pounds.
Oh. But you still had a flat brim.
Oh, of course, that'll never go away.
Where did that come from?
From who was it? I think it was from Smitty. It's from John Smith. I saw, because in high school, everybody thought I had a flat brim in high school, and I didn't. Mine was curved, and I'm ashamed to say it was curved. But I remember my first couple of weeks at Fullerton, I saw how Smitty was wearing it. He kind of had his was kind of like turned to the side a little bit, but it was flat, and I loved how it looked.
Well, he's left-handed. He's a little goofy.
Yeah, exactly. But I kind of liked how that was, so I wanted to be just like him. So I got the hat, and I did the same thing. The only change I did was I pulled it over my bushy eyebrows.
I know that. By the way, that made it difficult doing those portrait shoots with you when your goddamn hat was basically riding on your eyeballs.
Yeah.
Now we've dodged that, but we're going to go back in the time machine. So we're doing posters in 2003, and we do one with Costa. We're going to do one with you. We're going to do one with, who else was it? Was it Wes, I think?
Yeah, but it was West. He was best of the West.
Yeah, he was the map. Shane was the smoking bat. Yeah. Yep. And you was the most elaborate one, because we had artists who drew, we had to paint up all the players, and we had Texas and USC, and we had all these guys all drawn up, and I had my $1,000 lawn mower that worked, and we bring out, we dug a hole, and I'm guessing this was probably your first photo shoot. It wasn't,
It definitely was.
Yeah, I didn't think I had seen you on Vogue or anything before. And all I wanted you to do was look angry and mean, which is what I saw when you were on the bump. Between those chalk, you were an SOB. And you looked like the sweetest pussycat pushing a lawnmower.
Yep.
I could not get you to.
And I remember all I could do was laugh. I would try to be mean, and I just couldn't stop laughing.
Oh my
God! I
God!
just would have this little smirk on my face. I couldn't do it.
It was Mike Greenlee. Ryan was the SID, but it was the first time Mike Greenlee and I worked together, and he's like, "I have never seen you work so hard with a subject in my life." And I was saying horrible things about you. Horrible.
Yep. And I couldn't get mad.
Nothing. You just patted me on the back, and I got down on the ground, kept shooting more pitchers, and good.
But that goes back to my personality. Like, that's a perfect example. Like, when I'm off the field, I'm the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Ever.
But when I'm on the field, like, I don't know what it is about me. That's where I cannot recreate that like anywhere else.
You're the Hulk. You're the Hulk. Like, there's that. I mean, that when you wagged your finger at ASU, you used your index, but it might as well have been a giant, massive middle finger.
Yep. And I remember, I think I did it to Pedroia. I think it was.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sure, of course. Who else would you have done it to? You would have done it to the ninth, guy in the batter's spot, and they count it now. So it was interesting how that metamorphosis for you, somehow start. And of course, it doesn't happen during the national anthem. It happened like in the 8th inning because you would be bullshitting eating seeds in the 5th, 6th, and then you might wander down to the bullpen.
It wasn't seeds. It was either a hot dog, a Western bacon cheeseburger, or a big old box of Twinkies.
I was trying to make you look healthy.
Oh, no, just flat out say it, Chad. You're a fat. Which I was.
I've never seen someone devour Twinkies like they were sunflowers.
They were good.
So are you enjoying coaching?
I am. I love it. It's I don't coach my kids. I help them out, off the field and stuff, but I don't coach my kids at all because I don't like that. But I enjoy coaching. I think it's anytime me having a chance to get back and hopefully get kids to where I was, and if not to get back to where I was get them to the level that they wanted get to. I love that, and I will do anything I can to help a kid. I've been coaching for quite a number of years, and last couple of years been coaching softball. I love the recruiting side of it.
Explain how you get to that. I mean, we're not talking beer league and you're coaching 40-year-old men.
Right.
This is girls softball.
Yeah.
How does an all-star Major League Baseball player get there?
Well, I was coaching baseball at the time, and my ex, she was coaching softball, and so she was like, "Why don't you come out and try it?" I was like, "Okay, I'll help you out whenever I can." So I went over there.
She's a gymnast. What the hell is she doing?
No, my recent ex.
Oh.
She played at UCLA. So yeah, no, you're good. So she played softball at UCLA. It was an All-American over there.
Yes. That was that was the last time I saw you.
Yeah.
Was at a Fullerton UCLA game.
Yep. And so she was like, "Why don't you come try coaching softball?" I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." Never thinking that it was going to pull me in the way it did. But the minute I got to coaching softball, I was like, "This is old school. This is like old school baseball. This is what Fullerton used to be like." It was the pitching and defense. It was a bunting. It was hit and runs. It was stealing. Not waiting around for a 3-run home run that's never going to come. And I love that. I love the National League style of baseball, and that's what softball is. And I love the pace of the game, how quick it is, because there's always something going on. And plus, like the girls, like they get after it. They're there for a reason. They also understand there's not a whole lot of opportunities, unfortunately, for them after college. There is a pro league now, but there's not a whole lot of girls who have a chance to play for it. So they get after it because they know that's their time to shine, and they're doing everything they can to set them up to get a scholarship and go to school and help their parents pay for school.
Wow. I mean, you really took to it.
I did. I loved it. And now it's taking me all the way to Hawaii.
Yeah. Okay. So explain that. Like, did you ever think that was something you would do?
No, I honestly, even when the opportunity came up, I didn't really even really think anything of it. And it happened over the summer. So we were hosting. So between our two teams that my ex and I were coaching, we had an 18U team, which I was a head coach for. We had a 16U team, which she was a head coach for. And we had 11 girls from Hawaii between the two teams, and we hosted them all summer. They stayed with us. We would take them to the field every day, take them to warm up or to work out, to the gym, and all that kind of stuff. And one of the girls had just kind of in passing had mentioned, "Hey, Coach Chad, you should be my high school coach." I was like, I can't do that. But she kept saying that throughout the whole summer. And I was like, the more she said, I was like, it's actually not a bad idea. And I talked to some people. They're like, no, like you should really do it. And so I talked to a couple people that I know from Hawaii who are involved in softball. I talked to my family about it. They were like, no, you should do it. So I applied for it, still not thinking that I'm going to get the job. And I got the job.
Wow.
And so they offered me the job. They flew me out to Hawaii to go meet with them and set me up on a hotel on the beach, and I was sold.
Jesus, I mean, that is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the school is great. The former head coach was another former big leaguer, Benny Agbayani. He played for the Mets.
Yeah.
So he was an old coach, and he stepped down after this past season, and because both his daughters had graduated. His oldest one is at Cal right now playing, and I want to say the one that just graduated is at BYU, I think. So he stepped down, and that's what opened up this opportunity. And so, I applied for it. I got the job, and I made the move out there about a month ago.
Jesus. That ain't Chino, my friend. That is not Chino.
No, it's definitely not. There's no beaches out over here in Chino.
So is that the Big Island?
No, I'm on Oahu.
Oahu, okay.
So
all right.
Yeah. So I live in Honolulu. I live about a half mile away from Waikiki Beach.
Okay.
Because that's where the school was, and so the school it's a big time private school in Honolulu. It's called Iolani. It's been around for over 100 years, and it's one of the better schools in the state, and I think throughout the whole country too. And so they actually own a few apartment complexes over there. So they set me up with an apartment across the street from the school, and moved out there, live out there in a 1-bedroom apartment, and I love it. I go to the beach every day. And it's peaceful. I could go get to the beach around 9 o'clock in the morning, stay there until about 1 or 2, and then come back, take a quick shower, head over to the school, work out with the girls, and then after that I'll go work at some cages, and then I'll come back, eat dinner, fall asleep, wake up, and do the same thing over again.
Oh my God, you're living the dream, you son of a gun.
And then when I go back to I'm in Chino right now at my parents' house, so. When I go back after the weekend, I'll take my paddleboard out there with me, and I'll take up paddleboarding again.
Wait, what? Paddleboarding?
Oh, yeah.
Look at you. My God, You're an athlete.
I'm even going snorkeling now.
No.
Oh, yeah.
I barely know you. My God. That's great. Are you happy?
So I love it out there. It's been amazing. It's kind of gotten me back to where I need to be. And then, like I said, my parents are supportive of it. My kids are supportive of it. I come home every other weekend to hang out with the kids and stuff. And their mom is very supportive of it. So I couldn't have asked for a better situation.
That's good. That's good. Okay, so the real question's this. Have you ever, as you rest your head on your pillow and you go to bed at night, have you ever wondered what your spin rate was? It's all about the spin rate now.
It is. I've had a few people mention to me that they were like, you probably had a really good one because of how for whatever reason, how hitters could not hit your fastball. But I was like, I've never thought about that before. All I knew was I threw an invisible. That's all I cared about. Is
it crazy to think like now what everybody's looking at now? Like before it was Chad throws, Chad hits the zone, pounds the zone, Chad good. Now it's like, well, this is what we're looking at. Like all these just crazy numbers.
It's kind of taking me a little bit of time to get used to it. But you know what? I think it's working out. It's you kind of have to be able to fit to pair, the analytics and then with old school style of coaching. But but I think You know, the more information you can have on a pitcher or on your mechanics, all that, the better off it's going to be.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. When you look at baseball now, if you're watching any part of the World Series or anything, do you look at it from a fan standpoint, or are you looking at it from still professional baseball player standpoint?
Oh no, I am. When I'm watching now, I'm just a fan. I don't look at it through with coach's glasses on. I'm looking at it as a straight fan.
Okay. Because did you see the game? I think it's game 5 whenever the Dodgers lost, or maybe it was game 4.
Oh yeah, when I was at the beach.
Yeah, and you see Horton behind home plate in the rain with a pizza box on his head. If you look at him, he can't do what you do. He was looking like he was going to reach over, grab his giant big gulp container. Like he was coaching.
Yep.
He was the only one in that stadium not enjoying himself.
Mm-hmm. But that's how he enjoys himself, though, is by doing that kind of stuff. And he's always like that. I don't think he can ever get away from that, even when he's coaching his granddaughter softball. He's always in coach mode, and that's just how George is, and I love him for that. And that's what makes him the type of coach that he was. What was
it like for 3 years, having him as your head coach?
It was by far the funnest time I've had. Him, Serrano, and Hookie, they worked so well together. I mean, they knew how they balanced each other when the right way. They knew when to get on us. They knew when to not get on us, and it was just. I mean, they joked around with us too, which helped us. I think play the way we did was we were always relaxed. Horton never put any pressure on us. He knew that we were capable of doing well, and he didn't yell at us just for the sake of yelling at us. When he yelled at us, we knew we messed up, and whatever we did, we corrected it, and we went on. But Horton, I love Horton to death. I still talk to him this day, and he's one of the greatest mentors I think I've ever been around.
Yeah, George is the best. The best.
Yeah.
I loved when I had my camera to work with him. It was fantastic. What was Dave like as a pitching coach for you?
He was very similar to George. He didn't try to make everybody into a robot. Like, he didn't try to make everybody throw exactly the same. He watched you, and he observed what you're able to do, and then he fixed whatever he needed to be fixed. He didn't try to make us all look the same way. Like some schools, like Stanford, all their pitchers looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
USC, their pitchers looked exactly the same. Fullerton, we didn't. We all had very good changeups, and he was very good at teaching us that. But our mechanics wise, we're all different. I mean, if you look at my foot pointed directly to the first base dugout, which you're not supposed to do. But he let me do it because that's what worked. And so I think that's what made him be such a good pitching coach was he let us do what he recruited us to do, and then he fixed us when he needed to fix us.
That's all you could hope for, right, out of a coach.
Yep.
I'm happy, my friend, that you're happy. It brings a smile to my face, and I'm sure you're going to be as brown as mahogany wood working at paddleboarding around the beach.
I'm pretty much there right now. In fact, I'm pretty sure my left arm is peeling right now.
Jesus. It's November, and you've got a deep tan.
Oh, yeah, man. I go to the beach. I get me a poke bowl from this place called K Milk with Seafood in Honolulu. Eat it there. I roll up in the car, park right next to the beach, get my chair out, pop it on the right there by the beach, and I'm there all day.
Chad Cordero, 7 years in Major League Baseball, 314 games, 128 saves. Does that sound weird?
It does sound weird.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how many games I've been in.
Yeah. And I've never heard anybody in a podcast say this much, but I didn't think that was going to happen. Like, that's your life story.
Yep.
Like, it's unbelievable. Well, Chad, I can't thank you enough for taking the time.
Yeah, of course.
Go back inside with mom and dad. Spend some time with them before you bolt off to paradise.
Yep, I will.
You're the best, Chad. I appreciate your time, my friend.
All right, no problem, man.
I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Chad Cordero. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button and become a subscriber to the podcast. Remember, you can follow the Just a Good Conversation podcast on Instagram, and you can find all of our past shows on the website at justagoodconversation.com. Thank you for listening.